Namaste. My name is Vivek. You can call me Vivek. The agenda today is we begin with just a minute, where each of us takes a minute or less and explain why viewers should connect with us, how they would benefit and what would they need to do to connect with you. After that, I shall make a short presentation in multiple parts. This HOA is a mixture of partly scripted and partly spontaneous discussion. I shall show you a brief intro, then we shall have a brief discussion, and then I shall go into the main topic for today. I shall stop after a few slides every now and again, and we shall have a brief discussion in between these short breaks. Then I shall show a few more slides with mind maps and explain and so on. So that's how I plan to do this Hangout on Air. Okay, so let us begin. I'm taking myself a minute. So Namaste, my name is Vivek. VivekTechnology.com is my website. I believe in living a simple life. I believe in thinking differently. I am proud to share my belief with Steve Jobs and Leonardo da Vinci, who said, "Simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication." Here's my simple way. Avoid the cowboys, work with the Indian. Let the Indian handle technology, and you live an integrated, simple life. Maybe you have lots of projects and you're struggling to find someone who can integrate and simplify. You can reach me by email at videobook@wake-technology.com, and you can see this video live at wake-technology.com/videobook. That was my just a minute. Now it is the turn of my panel members today. So I shall call upon each of you and give us a minute of why it's beneficial for us to, the viewers, to contact you, how it will be beneficial for them, and how to contact you. So, Doctor?
Hi. All right, I'll jump in. I'm Dr. Manny St. Victor. You can reach me at breakthecagemd.com or at mindful360.com. What I do is I focus on teaching mind mastery. My core belief is that if I can stand here and flex my arm and be like, okay, wow, I can get better at flexing my arm by lifting weights, developing flexibility, and knowing not to bend my elbows sideways where the hinge doesn't work. You know, if I can do those basic things, one would think that you could turn to your mind and do the same thing by getting to know where the hinges are, metaphorically speaking. Well, mainly by metaphor, by story, by being aware of your beliefs. So you can reach me once again at mindful360.com or breakthecagemd.com, and I help people master their thought process and live an optimal life by not letting the bugs in their software interfere with their peak performance.
How appropriate for today's discussion. Thank you for joining us today, and I really feel honored to have a doctor with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
David, it's your turn.
How honored do you feel to have a marketing and sales guy with you today? I've been a small business owner for over 40 years, and it is my responsibility, my obligation to give back to the small business community in any way I can. I am a facilitator of small business challenges. I have yet to be confronted with a challenge that we couldn't find some working solution to that challenge. The best way to get in touch with me The simple way is to, and Vivek has told me so much about Simplify, is to just Google Small Biz David, and you'll get any information. Follow the links, and you'll get any information you possibly need about me.
Okay, so yeah, we all had our just a minutes. There will be 3 elements in each episode of this Hangout on Air series. So, presentation, which you will be seeing shortly, live discussion, which would soon follow, engagement. I shall engage in conversation with the audience who put comments on the event page or on YouTube. So, let me do a screen share and proceed further. As usual, before I proceed further, let me answer the question, why am I doing this? I'm a firm believer in starting with why. Why am I doing this? As you may already know, integrate, simplify life is my tagline. With the study and review of works by inspirational people, I hope to inspire those who visit my website to integrate, simplify life. So let me read a few lines from about the book pages of this book that I have studied this book and I am reviewing it, sharing it with you. He says about the book pages. They say, do you sometimes behave irrationally or impulsively? Do you face some situations where with the fear and trepidation? Do feelings of self-doubt consume everyday activities? Leading consultant psychiatrist Dr. Steve Peters knows more than anyone how impulsive behavior or nagging self-doubt can impact negatively on our professional and personal lives. In this book, Steve shares his phenomenally successful mind management program that helped Olympic gold medalists and senior managers alike to conquer their fears and operate with greater control, focus, and confidence. Let me read 2 testimonials that are there in the book by 2 multiple gold medalists in Olympics. Victoria Pendleton, she says, I don't think I would have realized my potential without Steve. Sir Chris Hoy says, without Steve, I don't think I would have won gold in Athens in 2004. Reading this book will take you on a journey of self-discovery and development. By understanding and applying the concepts within it, you will not only improve the quality of your life, but also significantly increase your chances of being happy and successful in whatever you do. The book is written around a model that Professor Steve developed and called Chimp management. These are some of the questions that would help when you follow the model that Professor Steve developed. I'm showing you a complicated mind map and it gets a bit more complicated, but I am endeavoring to zoom in and help you explain. So these are some of the questions that would help when you follow the model that Professor Steve developed. How do I become the person that I would like to be? How do I become more organized and successful in what I do? How do I become a more effective leader? how do I sometimes become so irrational in my thinking? Why? I can't get on with my boss. Why? The book is a treasure trove, and hence, to do any justice at all to the book, we need multiple parts. So this HOA is first part in a multi-part study of this book. We begin with the chapter entitled The Psychological Mind. Then go into the divided planet, where Professor Steve explains how our brain is structured and how it affects our psychology. He then explains how we can guide ourselves to success and relationship of personality and mind. That is the mind map of part 1 in his book. In the book, he considers 7 different areas to work on: your inner mind, understanding and relating to others, communication, the world in which you live, your health, your success, your happiness. He says, to help you understand and visualize these areas better, each will be represented by a planet, some of which have their own moons to stabilize them. The 7 planets and their moons come together to form the psychological universe within your head. But before that, let me ask my panel, what are your thoughts so far?
I would yield to Dr. Manny first.
Sure. I got to watch the video, and I was refreshed by the simplicity. I enjoyed that within, I think it was a 15-minute video, and he gave me some actionable steps, you know, how to program my core values and have them there waiting for when the chimp acts up. So that, to me, I like a simple system, because when I'm up against a flame, I'm not going to be remembering complex diagrams. And I like that he honored that in his delivery in the speech of his model.
David?
Vivek, in the first segment, you said 2 things that particularly caught my attention, said and showed 2 things that got my attention. Early, you talked about, or you mentioned, behave impulsively. And impulsive behavior is a very important concept to grasp, to understand, to react to as far as small business goes. So I like to tie in with that particular comment to small business. The second thing that you mentioned that really got my attention, would you go back and bring up on the screen again the mind map that you did that asked the 5 questions?
5 questions?
You asked 5 questions. It was about the third, about 3 slides in.
Yeah, let me bring that.
That's the one. That's the one. First, I want to say you have this whole concept of mind mapping down to a science. You really understand how to map our minds, and I think the whole concept. Well, look, mind management, how to map our minds. Your ability to create these mind maps it ties into the theme of the chimp paradox extremely well. As I look at those 5 questions on the side there, and I was thinking, if you replace the word I with how, let's take the first question, how would I like my small business to become the business I would like it to be? If you took the word I and just replaced small business, these are the kinds of questions, and you and I have had these discussions many, many times. We did a whole blab series on questions in small business. It's this time of the year. There are a little over 100 days left in this calendar year. These are 5 questions that small business owners or solopreneurs need to be asking themselves. So it's not just the question, it's the answer to those questions. So thank you for creating that mind map. That's something, Vivek, I think you really want to post it separately. You know, take it out of this whole discussion and just post it. It's a wonderful, wonderful slide. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me get back to the mind map. And would be doing the screen share again. So in the book, he considers 7 different areas. I think I've covered that part. And this is Professor Steve Peters giving his TED talk. I have already put the link to this on the event page, and Dr. Mani already mentioned that. The human brain is complicated, so we will look at a simplified version. The 3 psychological brains in our model, the frontal, limbic, and perital, I hope I said that correctly, are called the human, the chimp, and the computer. Within the chimp management model, 3 of these brains, frontal, limbic, and perital, combine to form the psychological mind. And we will only look at these brains, he says. The psychological mind also has a storage area which he refers to as a computer. He says it is spread throughout the whole brain, but to make it simple, we treat it as if it's a specific part of the brain. The computer stores information that the chimp or human has put into it. It then uses the information to act for them in an automatic way, or it can serve as a reference point. In the TED talk, the professor uses this map of the brain. The frontal part of the brain is the human part of everyone, the human part. It is shown in yellow here. Limbic part, which is shown in white, is the chimp part. The computer that is mentioned is the perital part of the brain, shown in green in this diagram. When you were in the womb, 2 different brains, the frontal, the human, and the limbic, the chimp, an emotional machine, developed independently and then introduced themselves to each other by forming connections. The problem is that they found they were not in agreement about most things. Either of these 2 brains or beings could run your life for you, but they try to work together, and therein is the problem. He says having a chimp is like owning a dog. You are not responsible for the nature of the dog, but you are responsible for managing it and keeping it well behaved. This is a very important point, and you should stop and think about this because it is crucial to your happiness and success in life. He says, When you have a dog and let's say the dog bites someone, you can't simply say it was the dog that bit you, not me. You are responsible for how the dog behaves, so you have to manage the dog properly. So the chimp is an emotional machine that thinks independently from us. It is not good or bad. It is just a chimp. To reiterate, the chimp within your head is a separate entity to you. It was born when you were born, but actually has nothing to do with you as a human. It is simply part of your machinery. The chimp is the emotional machine that we all possess. It thinks independently from us and can make decisions. It offers emotional thoughts and feelings that can be very constructive or very destructive. When people have accidents that damage their frontal lobe, or where they have a disorder or illness affecting the frontal lobe, their personality alters. Effectively, the human part of the brain stops working, and the new personality that presents is the chimp. He says, the chimp can be your best friend and your worst enemy, even at the same time. This is the paradox. The title of the book is taken from this. The secret of success and happiness is you need to understand your human and not muddle up your human with your chimp. You need to understand how your chimp behaves and why it thinks and acts in the way that it does. One of the secrets of success and happiness is to learn to live with your chimp and not get bitten or attacked by it. That is the full mind map. The professor covered these concepts in his TED Talk. Let me take a short break and let us discuss. What do you people think?
I will yield to Dr. Murray.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful model. I like that it simplifies, and again, the most important thing about a model is to have a lightweight model that when you're up against a wall, you can refer to, and it does that. One of the key things that it points out is, and this is iterated heavily in the video, is that you can go in before your chimp is activated and put stuff in the belief system. You can put, and that would take the form of stories, predictions that you've corrected your beliefs to be more useful and to serve your outcome, and even some preferences to a certain extent, that so that when you hit that impulsive situation, you have a plan. He uses the want filter, where he's like, okay, did I want that to happen after something happens? So is which engages your prefrontal cortex, your frontal brain, the human brain, in his metaphor. And one of the most powerful things to realize is that regret after an action is the most effective way to rewrite your memories. The memories, in this case, the beliefs. So when you're like, did I want to do that? No. Am I happy with the outcome? No. You pause, you do the reflection, you change the architecture of that prediction, that belief, or even that that desire, because sometimes you're like, okay, I like ice cream, but if I don't like the outcome, I can go back and tell myself, you know, I don't really like ice cream as much as I thought I did, because now that I see what it does, I can update that trigger. And so regret is the emotion he's talking about that is a powerful memory rewriter.
David, your thoughts?
I don't know. I've got so many thoughts going through my head right now. I don't know where to start. You used, very interestingly, you may have started an interesting discussion. You know, there's an age-old discussion: are we born entrepreneurs, or is it something that we start to develop as we're born, and you know, we grow up and we develop as human beings? I think you might have clearly shown that in our mother's womb, that relationship between the frontal and the limbic, I see a relationship there of entrepreneurship. I really do. And so maybe it is genetic. Maybe there are some genes that develop from within the womb to enhance, you know, what kind of entrepreneur we may or may not be in our lifetime. You know, everybody is not an entrepreneur. So that was the first thing, and I'll be thinking about that one for a long time. And the second thing that got my attention, and Dr. Murray kind of jogged it also, and wow. And I have a friend who I'm going to discuss this with, Michelle Elise Mayer, who you know, Vivek. I had a blood clot on my brain. I had a subdural hematoma in 2009. And I've often wondered how that head trauma, you know, how much did it change the way I think about things? Or did it change? Or how did my life change? Certainly my life changed after that. There's no question about that, because I have life. and I'm living. But I've had some interesting discussions with Michelle Elise about that, about the impact of head trauma, what it might do to our lives. And now you got me thinking about it again in part two of this discussion. So I didn't know this was going to be this heavy today, Vivek. You've given me a lot of things to think about. You haven't simplified my life. You've made it more complex.
No, it doesn't make it complex. It actually depends on how you actually take it. Okay, we have actually come to the main part of the discussion. The professor explains in detail our brain structure. So let me do a screen share again. And that is a very complex mind map. Let me zoom in and explain. The divided planet is where the human and chimp live. You and your chimp typically have an uneasy relationship that frequently involves compromise and conflict. Let us look at how the chimp thinks. The chimp thinks with feelings. It's not always right, and it would change very quickly. Chimp relies heavily on impressions. We all worry about first impressions. It is the chimp which forms them. The chimp thinks emotionally. It jumps to opinions. It thinks in very black and white. It is paranoid, often catastrophic, irrational, and makes emotive judgments. The professor tells a short story of Rob and his girlfriend. Let me stop the screen share and tell you the story. Rob is waiting for his girlfriend, Sally, at a cinema, and they have agreed to meet at 8:30. The time is now 9, and there is no sign of her. His chimp has got control and is on the war path. His chimp thinks emotionally. It is late. She has not told me what is happening. I'm wasting my time. I may as well go into the cinema. She isn't worth it. She has let me down. She shouldn't do this to me. She has humiliated me. I'm angry. I'm upset. And so on and so on it goes on. Suddenly, Sally arrives, and before she has the chance to say anything, his chimp attacks. Why have you turned up late? You have made me look like a fool. What's the point of going in now? It's too late. And many more attacks. Then he stops and Sally speaks. Someone has been knocked over just round the corner. I went to help, and they were using my mobile to get an ambulance and the police. I held the woman's hand as she lay on the floor. The ambulance came, and then I rushed to get here. I'm sorry I couldn't let you know, but they were using my phone to get help. Now, Rob feels pretty bad, and his chimp changes its emotion to being remorseful. But the damage is done. Let me get back to the mind map and screen share again. Humans begin to work out what is happening by first establishing the facts. They gather all the information available before beginning to make plans. Having gathered the facts, humans try to establish the truth and then base their beliefs on the truth. Here are some of the traits of logical thinking: evidence-based, rational, in context, and with perspective, shades of gray, and balanced judgment. Contrast this with the chimp thinking. Both chimp and human are healthy with different interpretations of what is happening, how to deal with it. The professor gives two examples: John and the parked car, and second example of Sarah's comment. I'm not going to give you those examples now because it would be too long, but this is the huge mind map about ways of thinking for the chimp and the human. Now, both human and chimp have different agendas. The human believes in self-fulfillment. Human has a self agenda, has a purpose in life, and also has a society agenda which thinks of justice, structure, and so on. Whereas the chimp has a survival agenda, perpetuation of species. It has major drives such as a sex drive, parental drive, self-survival, food security, territorial drives. So that mind map there shows you all of those. Now, the chimp and the human operate in different ways. The chimp operates with what he calls as jungle center. The chimp operates from the jungle. So major factor is body language. So the chimp makes inferences, guesses, etc. based on body language. It has instincts for survival. It often looks for answers to the question, do I need to fight the situation? Do I need to run away? That is flight. Or do I freeze, hoping that the situation would solve itself? So, when that doesn't happen, if the human can't decide one of the three, can't decide whether it is fight, flight, or freeze, then the chimp experiences anxiety. So that's what happens when the chimp, human can't decide whether what's the appropriate situation, and then the chimp might take over the situation. So these are the drives: jungle center. Let me zoom in there. Troop, it has a strong drive to create a troop of its own. It has an ego. It wants shelter. It tries to protect the territory. It has a strong drive for food, power, sex, and parental instinct, security, and inquisitiveness. These are all the drives that Professor talks about in his book. And it also takes a vulnerable stance whenever it encounters, whenever it's in an unfamiliar territory, because it experiences anxiety. It doesn't know what to do. The triple F, which I just talked about, fight, flight, or freeze. It doesn't know what to do. So there is a lot of anxiety whenever the chimp encounters unfamiliar territory. And he talks about male and female chimps. He says male and female chimps differ. Male chimps, in male chimps, he says the right amygdala has more right-sided brain connections, and it is male chimp is driven sexually. The female chimp, the left amygdala has more left-sided brain connections, and the female chimp has strong maternal drives. He says male and female humans don't differ. The human male and human female are extremely similar, but are being influenced by the inner chimp, which is more typical male or female in character. And hormones enforce these differing roles by boosting the genes and systems within the brain. Estrogen for female, testosterone for men. And he talks about the humanity center. We just covered what the chimp does. Now it's human. What's the humanity center? It depends on honesty, compassion, conscious, law-abiding, self-control. And he says managing your impulsive, emotional chimp as an adult will be one of the biggest factors determining how successful you are in life. Humanity center has a sense of purpose, achievement, and satisfaction. And he mentions a marshmallow experiment done in Stanford, where children were given in a school, I think. Children were provided with marshmallows, but they were told that if you wait for the class to be over without eating the marshmallow, you would get more marshmallows. So few children waited. They were patient. So they were able to control their impulsive, emotional chimp. And so he says they were more successful because of the patience. So this is the big mind map, modes of operating. He talks about, again, he distinguishes two distinct personalities, you and your chimp. And he talks about the divided planet, because that's what is happening within everyone's head. He says recognizing both these aspects and managing both will help to get best of both. So that is the entire mind map of one of the chapters in his book. And the next section is actually how to manage your chimp. But before that, let me get back to the panel and let me ask them what they think. David or Doctor?
I yield to Dr. Manny.
I think it's good. It shows the two levels of cognition that we use going throughout the day, and I like that it frames both of them as good, because a lot of times in our culture we beat ourselves up when we're only being human and, well, only being our inner chimp, because that's what's there, and it has gotten us far. You know, we're here. We're here. Any day that you're still alive now is indicative that there's something you're doing right. You can obviously optimize that and find yourself in a better position, but beating yourself up about it is not the way to go about it. And I like that they frame the two as both positive entities.
He says one needs to understand both, and then he specifically says you can't really control the chimp. You can only manage it, he says, because the chimp is really very strong, and I have actually heard some people say we need to kill our lizard brain and so on and so forth. In fact, in that lecture on TED, he says he there talks about Pendleton, who is the cyclist Olympian. She asked him how she wanted to murder the chimp, and he said, no, you can't do that. It's actually the major part of strongest part of your brain. You can't really do that. It's so only thing you can do is actually manage it rather than try to kill it or even control it. So let's get back to the screen share again. How to manage your chimp. He has more than one chapter allocated for that. So, how to manage your chimp. So he talks about this image is actually from his TED talk. He used this image, your inner chimp. Divided planet, how to manage your chimp. Step 1, he says, is you need to recognize who is in charge. And step 1 is the golden rule is whenever you have feelings, thoughts, or behaviors that you do not want or welcome, then you are being hijacked by your chimp. So you need to ask, do I want, and complete the sentence. Do I want this to happen? Do I want whatever? So begin the sentence with do I want and complete the sentence. If it is, the answer is no, then the chimp is what is giving you those thoughts. So don't let the chimp control what you do. So remember that chimps like to go on how they feel to decide on future actions, whereas humans tend to go on what needs to be done and also how they will feel at the end of the day when they look back on how they use their time. These are two very different approaches. Step 2, he says, is understanding the fixed process of how the brain receives information. He says all information goes to the chimp first. You can't take the power of the chimp and make decisions, because he says chimp is more powerful. He says chimp is 5 times more powerful than the human. Willpower is not a good way to try and manage your chimp. Don't arm wrestle the chimp, he says. Don't try to control your chimp. Manage it. He then goes on to, he then says, the chimp actually makes an offer. He says, whenever chimp tells you, whenever some input event happens, the chimp interprets it emotionally, and then chimp gives an offer. And it's not a command, it's an offer. Human has a choice to accept or reject that offer. Now, when the human and chimp are in agreement, everything is fine. But if the human and the chimp don't agree, then you have the chimp which is hurt emotionally. So human needs to manage the upset chimp. The chimp is upset, so the human has the responsibility to manage it, to pacify it, and so on. So he says you can't change the nature of your chimp, but you are responsible for managing it. He says the step 3 is, he says there are 3 ways. First is exercise. He says take the chimp to a locked compound and let it all out. Let the chimp go on talking. Give it reasons and all that. Let it all out. Listen to the chimp for as long as it takes. And he says, don't comment. Let the chimp let it all out. Don't comment. Just listen. And then comes the next part. He says, talk to chimp using truth and logic. And this is a process of boxing the chimp. And the third way is, since it is the chimp that is considered here, you give bananas to the chimp. Banana can be distractions or rewards. So he says it may take several repeat episodes of exercising the chimp for any one problem before you can box it. You may also need to keep putting the chimp back into its box several times for any one problem. And he says how to manage the chimp and develop the human is you need to nurture the chimp. Only then manage it. You need to nurture. He keeps, in his book, he keeps saying you need to nurture the chimp first, only then manage it. The chimp's drives won't change, but its behaviors can change. Chimps like to survive, whereas humans like to have a purpose. So that is a full big mind map of that chapter, the inner chimp. I have now actually come to the end of the presentation part, so it is discussion time.
That map is awesome.
No, the individual that created the map was awesome. Not was awesome, is awesome. I can only say it's kind of interesting, and it happened to me last night. Like all of us, we dream all the time, but we only remember some of our dreams. We don't remember all of them. The dreams that I remember are ones that have a high anxiety element to them, and so and I had one last night, and that must have been the chimp manifesting itself in my brain, and because you mentioned anxiety with it, but I always, and this always happens to me, and I watch it very closely. When I wake up from a dream of anxiety, I always try to go and measure my blood pressure. As you know, I've got some blood pressure issues, and I take medication, and stress shoots my blood pressure out the ceiling, and a dream of anxiety, would work in the stress and what have you. Maybe it's a manifestation of the stress. I don't know, but my blood pressure, and I always try to measure my blood pressure every day within the first 30 minutes that I'm up, so that I know how to take my medication throughout the day. Well, it was high today. I took my medication. I had an anxiety dream last night, and that dang chimp was the one that made it all happen.
Yeah, here's a comment from Christine Drysdale. She says, "I feel like the chimp with my Windows 10."
Well, there you go for buying into Windows 10, Kristen.
Yeah, I avoid that for now.
Reviews haven't been so good on it, Kristen.
Yeah, in the book, actually, he gives a lot of, David, you mentioned exercise and how to handle stress and all that. In the book, he at the end of every chapter, he gives a set of exercises which you can do, and these are all mental exercises, not really physical. You can do them and then see the results and so on. So yeah.
Well, as you know, I'm an exercise instructor. I teach 10 classes a week, and really, this is my, and you and I've had this discussion many times. I don't formally meditate. And you know that because you've been trying to get me to meditate for a couple of years now. But exercise, and me doing my exercise and getting into that exercise zone, is really my form of meditation. I mean, I get into it, and it takes me to a place where I'm not, before I started the exercise. So that's the way I do it. But you're absolutely right. Exercise. Not only is it good for the body, it's very, very good for the mind, because if you get into it, you get into a place where you haven't been, and so that's a good thing. So
here is one statement which I heard from one of the doctors on the TED, and this is: neurons that fire together, wire together. Doctor?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite statements. And what you want to make of that is you want to create a habit of associating your ideas with your environment so that you get the behavior you want. And this is where the regret and memory reprogramming comes into play. If you find that when you get home, you're in a bad mood and you're lashing out at people, if you take the time to reprogram that piece, if you say, okay, when I hit the door, I have this feeling that hits me, and that's your chimp at work. Let's take some time, acknowledge it, pay direct attention to it, meditate on it, and then use the human and see what's the desired outcome. I want to have a good long-term relationship with my family. I want my wife to like to see me coming through the door. So what do I do about that? So over and over, if every day you rewire yourself so that the neuron that recognizes I am home, and not necessarily the neuron, but the cluster that recognizes I am home and kickstarts the scripts that are not the desired outcome, eventually you disconnect the undesired outcome and you start firing a new set of programs associated with that that trigger. And eventually, over time, with patience, you end up where those are the two things that end up firing together.
He also, I mean, I've also heard that, and I think, David, I think this probably is more relevant for you and me, because, I mean, why I'm saying that is because I think, if I'm not completely mistaken, probably I'm older than you, Doctor, and David is older than me. So
way older than you.
So the point I'm trying to make there is, as we age, some parts of our brain, some neurons, they find themselves not really relevant. What they connect to no longer is really relevant. So we do need to learn something new. We need to keep the neurons active. Otherwise, parts of the brain dies. The neurons, they lose their connectivity and then die. And so
is that an explanation, Doctor? Maybe you're the one to answer about Alzheimer's. Is that where Vivek's discussion was going with that? And
Yep. Anything where you're neglecting a certain part of the system, you're going to expect it to atrophy. You're not getting blood over to it. You're not getting electricity over to it. And after a while, your brain is super efficient, as is your body. It's going to start channeling stuff to where you are using. If you happen to be someone who all the time is getting angry, your amygdala is going to get bigger, stronger, faster, wired for more effective access to the whole rest of your network. So
the mind is an unbelievable thing. My mother has dementia. She absolutely does not have Alzheimer's. I can carry on a conversation with her in the moment. That and she's 92 years old. The comments that she makes to me are some of the most provocative comments that I hear. She knows how to get to the bottom line to a situation. She's my mother. She's been doing it to me for 66 years. But she forgets about what we have spoken. Like 2 minutes later, she's forgotten that we've had that discussion. But in the moment, when she's got those neurons firing at full blast, it's amazing the things that she's able to share with me, the provocative thinking that she shares with me. So maybe it's that chimp at work again.
Oh yeah. What I look forward to is a future where they can update the software in different parts, because often you hear them talking about mind upload, and I'm like, well, that's extreme. But at the same time, if you can get different parts to get remyelinated, just like if you can go back and repair some of the wiring in any type of circuit system, you can get access back to that electricity, that stored information. And so I think as our culture moves more and more to thinking about the mind in a functional way, that more solutions like that are coming into play, more bringing different parts of the mind online that have shut down or that have lost their connection to the main integrated system.
And we're really able to identify those areas of shutdown, aren't we? I mean, that's we can do whatever it is that looks at your mind electronically. We can identify those areas where there is that shutdown, so we can create those connectivities again. Is that
absolutely? Yeah, and now we even have neurofeedback. And what's awesome about neurofeedback is, as I mentioned, because I can see my elbow, if I see something and it's time to lift it, I'm not going to try to lift it in such a way that my elbow joint is pulling against its natural range. With neurofeedback, what they're able to do is give you a visual representation of that part of your brain working. And since we're visual spatial people, your conscious mind is a 4D mind, time and space. So when they show you a picture of, okay, do this and you will calm down, do this and you will focus more. When you show a person that, when they walk out of that neurofeedback, they have a new amount of power over that part of the brain just by having seen a mapping of it and seeing their own version in action. It's pretty impressive.
Okay. Yeah, we now have come to the end of this show. So, any closing thoughts? Before that, let me explain that in the next episode, next week, I would be talking more about what Professor talks about, how we handle the chimp, and he gives various methods by which you can manage your chimp. He talks about, he gives 3 specific things: gremlins, and autopilot, and I forget the third one. Gremlin, autopilot, and what's the third one? He talks about 3 of them. Gremlins are hard to modify, but you need to work on them, and so on and so forth. I would be talking about that in the next week episode. So, closing thoughts from each of you. So,
well, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. So, thank you all for being with us today. So, David, you were saying, yeah, you need to go somewhere. The discussion has been really enlightening, and thank you all for being with us today. So, thanks, Doctor. Hope to see you next time as well. Next week. Same
yeah,
time.
I have to check my schedule.
Yeah. Okay. All I'm going to say is integrate, simplify life. Thank you.